All right, sync it up. Sweet. Uh, Ted Ligety, welcome to Arc City.
Yeah, psyched to join you, Jimmy.
So I mean we have lots to catch up on. I interviewed you last time, maybe 4 years ago or something like that on the other podcast. And so if people are interested, they can go check that one out. We talked a lot about everything, but we talked about your career a lot. We talked about your first gold medal. We talked about that season where you were crushing everyone. We hit a lot actually. I re-listened to it recently. Um, but I guess a lot has transpired since then. So my first question would be, how's the back feeling?
uh, not ski racing does the body wonders. So it feels pretty good. I mean, honestly, this moment it's not great, but I just got off a flight from New Zealand and my kids are sick, so they're keeping me up at night and old middle age kind of stuff more than actually like getting beat on stuff.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously that's what kind of brought your career to the end. I heard you just say New Zealand. I saw your Instagram post. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like let's just dive into that day if you don't mind. Like walk me through that day where uh like your plan was to finish your career at World Champs at that GS. And your back basically like said absolutely no way.
Yeah, that's a lot to go through. I mean, honestly, like for the last 5+ years of my career, my back was pretty touch and go. Um, I had had back surgery a couple years before that, and that like made it 80% better, but it was always fragile after that. It
Uh-huh.
always like it felt good if everything was like perfectly smooth. If you could have like a homogeneous slope, homogeneous course setting, and good snow, it was perfect. I could charge. What really was bad when there's like a couple holes or bumps and a compression and the stuff that like every single World Cup has like five of those turns. Those I didn't have much confidence in my back to sustain those. So that was obviously an issue. I put that kind of in the back of my mind or tried to ignore that, but my body, I always was instinctually reacting to that. So it was never really like good from like 2015 on. Um, it was just varying levels of mediocre. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I mean, I'd always had like sciatic pain for like years after that surgery. I mean, at
And
varying
is that
levels.
like the pain that like goes down the side of your leg, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it was like it started off like when I before I had surgery, it felt like a copper wire was like super hot and had electricity going through it and like that same style tension, which is like what led to surgery originally. And then after that, it kind of like migrated to like a looser wire and not as hot and mostly just kind of like in the upper glute, unless I was flying and traveling a lot and not taking enough anti-inflammatories.
Yeah.
Um, and then so like I actually had like been feeling that a lot that week before World Champs in 2021. I'd already announced that I was going to be done at that race. And then was just like trying hard. I mean, I've been like struggling on the ski setup for a while, and we finally got the pair of skis that I've been like asking Head to develop for like 2 years. So I
No
was like skiing
way.
a lot of volume, trying to like figure those skis out. Um, and it was working really well. And the combination of like having just flown over to Europe, skiing a lot of volume, doing a lot of like extracurricular like press stuff because I was retiring, um, all just like spiraled out and woke up one morning before training and was like couldn't get out of bed. I was like a 10 out of 10 pain level.
Wow.
Um, had Alex, my technician, he like helped pack my bags. We like got in the car. I actually had a car. He had a car, so I had to drive my car to Innsbruck in like 10 out of 10 pain. Went to the doctor there, and he like looked at the image and he's like, can you hold your pee or poo or like how are your like bodily functions? Because he's like, you should be in like not able to control any of that stuff. Like, you look bad. We should go into surgery right now. And I was like, I'm not getting surgery in Europe. How about just let's throw some cortisone in there and get me home.
Yeah.
So that's basically like how that happened. It was just, I think like I was already pretty close to bone on bone, and I just kind of finally smushed out whatever leftover disc material was in there, and um, it pissed it off to that next level. And so got a cortisone injection, kind of took the pain level down to a acceptable level where I could fly home, and then flew home, and that was that. So um,
Oh
it was kind of a
gosh.
heartbreak, but at least I had already like made peace with being done. So yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to like have one final like good hurrah when the setup in skiing was feeling good, but um, at least my two favorite, I went from being 20th all year to winning world champs on those skis.
Oh, he won on those skis.
On the skis I'd been training on too.
Wow,
The
I have so many questions, but I feel like wait, so those skis you were trying to get them for 2 years. What was the deal there? Like, and why those skis particularly?
when the skis like switched to being shorter and more side cut. Well, first of all, I grossly miscalculated. I thought like, oh, they're trying to slow things down. Oh, they're not gonna like set dead straight and super fast anymore. And they continued setting dead straight and fast. But so, I mean, we made skis based on the idea that like you wanted to be able to turn them really easily.
Uh-huh.
Actually, like the first year, we'd made some like longer, straighter skis that were somewhere between the 35s and the 30s. And we're just like, oh, they're not like workable in the scenario that we thought would happen. So we kind of set them aside. And then years later, which I wasn't really in favor anymore as far as like being who was listened to with ski development stuff. So it didn't happen. And then
Oh,
um, I kind of gave them the ultimatum. I was done unless they made these skis, even though I'd already kind of decided I was done. And so they made them. And then obviously it,
and you were fast on them.
I was fast on. I mean, who knows what, like, I was fast on them, in a 30-second training course. Who
Yeah.
knows if I could fast on them on a race day down gnarly, icy, bumpy stuff. But yeah, so I mean, who knows what could have been. But yeah, I mean, equipment was something I was always, deeply involved in. And then, when you're ahead, you've got a lot of guys to listen to, and I wasn't on top of the game, so I wasn't really listened to for a bunch of years, which I mean, that's part of the game.
Yeah. But I actually am interested. Last time we talked on the podcast, we didn't get into the nitty-gritty details of when FIS made that rule change, 35-meter GS ski, and you crushed that first season with the skis. You told me you got on them like over a year before you started racing on them. Like, what was that process like of developing? Because were you basically going to head and saying, I tried this ski, it's closer, it's not quite it, can you change this, this, and this, and they would just make a new one? Is that kind of how it was going?
Yeah, so I mean, it started off like when FIS first announced, or even like had the idea, all the ski companies had to make, it was originally supposed to be 40 meters. And so all the ski companies had to make a 40-meter ski for FIS to test. And we brought
The
that
Super
ski
G
down.
ski.
Yeah, yeah, that's a Super G ski. This is 2011. So this is like well before. This is New Zealand 2011. They had made the rule change. It was originally written at 40 meters. We brought a couple of those pairs down just to like see what was up. And they were unskiable.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's kind
sure.
of when I wrote um, those couple pretty scathing blog posts
Yep, I remember
about
that.
the rule change. Um, and that's kind of like what made them back down to 35. I think they like realized that it was like beyond absurd.
Yeah,
And then, next camp we had 35-meter skis that this was supposed to test, but also we started developing them and testing them right away. So this is like over a year before the rule change is supposed to come into effect. And so we already had a good idea of like what we needed to start working on. So, throughout that season, I mean, obviously I wasn't testing them every single day, but like every couple weeks we'd throw them in the mix and see how they're going and like see the next iteration and like figure out ways to make them turn. I mean, one of like the things we figured out kind of midstream the season before the rule came into effect was, hey, let's just like let's do an early rise on these. Like let's just like take them into a stairwell and bend the shit out of the tip of the ski and make it so they can turn in better. And that became, how we ran those skis the entirety of that time, which to my knowledge, I think we're the only people doing that. So
So
that
what
made
would
the
you
ski,
do? You'd bend the ski more, like to give it more camber?
no, to make it so it was like an early rise. So like reverse camber in the tip.
Oh,
So
so
the ski, like
okay.
the tip of the ski was like a millimeter out of the snow until you like turned it on, put it on edge, and then it helped you turn easier.
Oh, I heard something about this.
Yeah.
And you guys were doing this early on, and it is, I guess, the way the theory goes, like the ski is shorter that way. It's easier to handle that way
Well, if
because
you like
less is
think like
touching the snow.
kind of. So it's
Or
like that's what like production skis have been doing like, on the powder side, free ski side for a while, and then it helps initiate the turn because like the second you have 2 degrees of edge angle, the ski's already bent and starting to pull radius already.
oh, the
So
tip is
ski
already bent. You don't have to
the
bend
ski's
it.
already bent, like so you don't need to actually have like there's instantaneous like bend and the ski starts to go right away because you don't have
Gotcha.
to like bend through a few millimeters of camber. Um, so it just allowed the ski to like get into the turn way easier and smoother. So that was really like the reasoning for that to try to like get the things to come around. And then like when a ski starts, a little bit easier, it bends easier through the middle of the turn. It just like it's a cascading effect. So
Yeah.
allowed the skis to pull a lot more radius.
Whose idea was that?
It was Alex and my idea.
Okay.
We
And
were
Alex
like
was
trying
your
to figure
tech at
out
the
ways,
time.
Alex and my tech.
Yeah.
So we were figuring out ways. I mean, like I said, it came from free skis. Um, it came from like thinking about
Yeah.
like what like powder skis, like oh, like look at all these crazy reverse camber skis. Look at how easy
That's
they
crazy.
turn. Okay, let's see if we can make the race ski do something like that. So yeah.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. And so the other thing that's crazy about that 35-meter rule switch is the way that FIS made that decision. And as you said, you were a vocal critic of the decision. Do you know how FIS makes these decisions and like how much athlete input there is? You're smiling.
So back then there was no athlete input. Like so, FIS did a study. I'm saying this in air quotes. They had like 5 European college racers. So European college racer means you're like a 60, 70 point skier. So like not a super high level skier.
Hmm.
You wouldn't make it in the college circuit in the US. So they had 5 guys like that take 12 runs was basically like their testing scenario. So huge set of data, really big set of
Wow.
data with some it had some like little force plates on it. And I think I actually got some video from somebody at the time too of it, and it was like a nasty, crappy day. And so it's like A, like your data is bullshit. And C, like you're gonna make a decision based on one day with 5 guys and 12 runs, and like that is gonna be your data set for like saying something is safer. So they basically made the decision on that. Um, and it was really like led by like kind of the shadow, like in the shadows, Tony Giger, who was not with the Austrian team anymore, but was kind of essentially working for the Austrian team and was
Oh,
involved in FIS and doing research for the University of Salzburg. So it was really I don't want to like just throw out corrupt, but it was a pretty crooked way of,
did
it wasn't a very like it was a very disingenuous way of making a rule.
yeah.
Especially like I don't want to say like it was made because of me because that's not entirely the case. Like there's a genuine idea of trying to make the sport safer, but I was kicking ass for like the 2 years before that, and the Austrians were nowhere. I mean, Marcel was starting to come around, but he wasn't at his superpower height yet. Um, and outside of that, like the Austrians were nowhere in giant slaloms. So there was definitely a feeling that there was Tony Giger was trying to like play the rules to kind of slow some
That's
people
so
down and
interesting.
you know, trying to like play on the safety aspect and just not really taking a study seriously. So that was like the main reason we were pissed. I mean, all the athletes were pissed. I
Yeah,
think
I'm sure.
we had Like 56 of the top 60 skiers signed a petition. The only people who didn't sign it were the Austrians.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Signed a petition to say we don't want this rule change.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't pay any attention
I
to
think
that petition.
they're just dictated to like stay out of this.
Interesting. Because I've been curious about these sorts of decisions. I mean, like a recent one is they made this wild card rule where if you won a globe in the past 2 years or 10 years and are retired, you can come back, which basically you call it the Herscher rule because Herscher can now start 31st according to this wild card rule in any World Cup, despite not having FIS points anymore or whatever the FIS points that would start him 31st. Do you have any opinion on that? Or do
And
you
it's
know
a
much about
fantastic
it?
rule.
You like
Um,
the rule?
yeah, I mean, so ski racing, like start number is obviously a hugely important thing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get eyeballs. In any other sport, like somebody could come back and they can start at the level playing field to the top guys right away. Like any other sport out there. I don't
Like
know. Name
tennis or
one sport.
something, as long as they can
Name
get
one
in.
sport. Yeah, like
Yeah.
if Roger Federer wanted to make a comeback, he would get a wild card to all the majors. And yes, he wouldn't be ranked, so he'd have to play some maybe better guys in the early rounds. But like at the end of the day, you have to play the good guys to win a tournament anyways.
Yep.
So he's going to get entry to any tournament he wants. And that is good for the sport. You know, it doesn't matter what his rank is. He comes in, he gets to play. He maybe has some harder rounds. But so, like in ski racing, if Marcel wanted to come back, he would have to go fight for FIS points, which like people are like, oh, like that's what everybody has to do. Like, well, he already did that. He
Yeah,
did that
true.
when he was 17, 18, 19 years old. He's been there. He accomplished a shitload. And what service does it do to the World Cup to have him start 70th in Solden?
Yeah, nothing.
It doesn't do like
Yeah.
then it's like a non-factor. Like TV's not going to come back to 70th. Like the coverage is done, and then like he kicks ass and he gets like 31st. Like then it also doesn't need to do any like service because you're starting 70, and like no matter how good you are starting 70, things have to line up to get in the second run. So I think it makes all the sense in the world to allow people who are of that caliber to come back in a dignified way.
Okay.
Um,
I like
and if
that.
it like, and if, and that's not like, it shouldn't be like a permanent thing. You shouldn't just be like, do it for 10 seasons, but like one season to give yourself an honest comeback, I think is a good thing. And like when you if you like look at the list of people who it is, it's like very tight list of people who
You're
qualify
on
for
the
this.
list, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you have to win the globe or Olympic gold medal and 5 races in that discipline. And I mean, that excludes most people. There's
Yeah,
very few
true.
people that qualify for that. So it's not a rule that can get abused by a big amount of people. So if you, Jimmy, are mad that you're starting 46 instead of 45, boo hoo.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Like,
don't care. Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's not like before, like there used to be the 400 point rule um, for other events, like other racers coming in. And like my first years in the World Cup, there was like 8 guys in slalom that were downhill racers in a combined slalom race day that were starting that were crappy slalom skiers, and that's 8 guys who were 400 points. It's like you had Didier Defago, and you had like a bunch of guys that had no business racing slalom doing it for the combined, and they're like 8 guys in front of you in a slalom race.
Yeah.
That matters. And then they moved it to 500 points, so the hurdle became higher, and that makes more sense. But this is like you have a couple people, and it is a person, you'll have probably one person only ever. And it's a person who is not going to make a big difference on the course impact because they're going to be at a high enough level.
Yeah, true. Would you ever use that rule? Would you ever come back?
I mean,
No. No.
my body would last about a week of training for real. Maybe
Yeah.
that week is being very generous. So, um, no, I watch, when I watch World Cup, there's probably like less than that. Maybe there's 3 runs a year. Then I'm like, ooh, that looks like fun. I could get into that. But for the most part, I'm like, ouch, that looks hard.
Yeah. So do you watch the full World Cup season? Do you watch every race still?
I still like watch at least the highlights. I don't watch like the full run. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
super easy to watch everything here, but definitely. watching the highlights and um, finding the runs of people I want to see what's going on.
Like, so what do you make of Marco Oder? Actually, I was just looking this up. Marco Odermatt is now within one win of your GS total, um, which I don't like. Like, I want an American, right? Above the Swiss, but he's been crushing it. Like, what do you think of his skiing? And like, do you have any thoughts on his skiing? Do you enjoy watching it?
Yeah, his skiing is awesome. I mean, he is amazingly strong both mentally and his skiing is great. I mean, it's his like timing is a superpower. I mean, watching him ski, he's like it sounds like so cliche, like Swiss clockwork, but his timing is like next level. I mean, he just like hits the ski in the fall line cleanly every turn. He's not pinching turns off. He's not double turning. Um, it's pretty amazing. I mean, technically, it's strong skiing. I mean, it's not like I feel like when I watched Hirscher, like you'd be like, oh, how do you like do that? Like that's like some crazy like how can you get your body in that position and pull this
Yeah.
off? When I watch Marco, I don't like see that, but I'm also like, how does he like replicate that timing so many turns in a row on a variety of terrain and types of snow? I mean, that's what's the most incredible about it. So, yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. And like I remember last time we did the podcast, you mentioned timing like that as one of the key parts of GS. And when I trained with you a few times, you were always on us about what you said, not double turning, getting the timing. Like, can you just describe that to the layman, like what you mean when you're talking about depth and making a turn that's like unimpeded by the gate?
Yeah, I think people like to gate hunt. They like to go pin their body right on the gate because they feel like they're chopping line, they're going straight, and it's fast. And I've almost never seen anybody hit a gate hard and not be letting off the ski a little bit. That's just reality. I mean, I like watch when you watch World Cup, I would say 80% of the field is double turning most turns. And that
Just not
is
one smooth, powerful arc,
not one smooth
accelerating
take
the whole
turn. And
way.
I'd say it's like even more prevalent now because course sets have gotten so straight. So like guys kind of like get pinned in on the gate and the speed is higher. So and the skis turn too easily. So it's much harder to time that going into the gate. But like if you want speed out of the turn, you have to make one smooth turn because anytime you're making even a micro adjustment because the gate's in your way, that is taking the bend out of the ski, which takes your ability to accelerate out of the turn out of it. Um, and so that's like a hugely important thing. I mean, timing was like the most important thing that I worked on in my skiing, which, um, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like you watch even the highest level, and you know, when people are smashing through gates and shooting them off, they're not letting off as much as like you would see at a lower level where they're like completely on and off the edge, but they are still doing it. I was like, you watch Johan Verdu, like he's an amazing GS skier, and he pinches every single turn off. Like every single turn, he has a little flat spot. And like if he skied with 6 inches more space, he'd be a second faster.
Yeah. Maybe he's listening to
Like
the
only it's
podcast.
all like that's the thing about this is like it's 6 inches more space at the apex of your turn, just so like your body has space to like move. Because if you have to like erect, like if your upper body has to like go from being like inclinated to like standing straight up to get out of the way and you're like having to move there, that affects how your ski tracks in the snow. Um, where like you shouldn't have to move your body. Like people would see like Marcel gate hunting, but like what part of like his superpower is like he didn't change his turn when he like did smash through gates,
Yeah.
um, which was impressive. I mean, I mean, that's the rub. I mean, if somebody who is a 30-point level skier could time the turn perfectly every single turn, they'd be top 10 in the World Cup tomorrow.
Okay. I'll go out
Yeah.
there and do that in
Yeah. I
training
mean, it's
tomorrow.
like it's that simple, but it's also to time it like that is really difficult. You have to be
Yeah.
patient and then go super hard and committed to it. And that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's like I always like harp on people like when I do coach a little bit timing and it is like such a critical piece that is I don't feel like people think about or work on in their skiing, and they just like think it looks cool because they're smashing through gates.
Yeah.
We're not like watching that like instant by the gate where like their ski is not tracking the same as it was before and after.
Do you feel like I mean, coaches before have, or people before have told this to me. They free ski a lot once they retire, and they feel like they learn more about skiing than they had before. Like, have you found that with all the free skiing you've done? Like, suddenly you're like, oh man, if I knew this, if I had this feeling, or
So I always free skied a lot. I mean, that was like
okay,
a really big part of like how I came up in skiing. Like after training on the Park City ski team, I'd go out and free ski, and that was like also the time when carving skis were coming about. So like my buddies and I would just go out and like have carving contests. We go like see who could like lay it over the furthest. And like this is when I was 14 years old, and like you went from straight skis like 180 slalom skis one year to like 165 slalom skis the next year, and you're like, oh man, look at how these things turn. And like
yeah,
dragging knucks, a couple days in to like a month later, like dragging your armpits on the snow, and just like playing on our skis. So that was always a big part of my development that I still like did a fair amount when I was racing. I mean, not as much as I would have liked to. And as you know, like when you're in Europe, like not that many places you go to train have great free skiing opportunities.
yeah,
Um, but I always tried to do that, especially when I came home, when I came back to Deer Valley, like ripping around GS style turns or just free skiing on groomers was perfect there. And so I tried to do that a lot as it was anyways. But I think free skiing is definitely like a element that's missed, especially at the highest level, because you get kind of stuck in your zone of just trying to bash gates, and the opportunity is also like not there that often as well.
yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I think to all the younger kids listening, definitely go out and free ski more. Um, and it's fun too. Like it's fun to just go rip arcs or hit jumps or whatever you want to do, but there's always space to rip some arcs, and I find a lot in my skiing once I'm doing that. I agree with that.
Yeah,
Um,
like unstructured play on your skis. Like that's
yeah,
like, you see so many people like go out and like free ski and they're like doing drills and they're like no poles and they're doing all this like crazy rigid stuff. Like you need to go out and like ski and feel what your skis do when you're just doing different things with your body, like on an arc. Just go
yeah,
play. Like, and that ends up like translating to course. Cause like when you're in a course, like if you're racing a World Cup, like you don't have time to like think about some technical thing. Like you got to like act instinctually, and you learn that stuff by playing. Like you learn how to like ad lib just by like messing around. Um, and so it's important to have those skills, and that I think it's hard to develop that in a course when you're just training all the time. I think free skiing allows you to kind of have some of that more flexibility in your skiing.
uh-huh. So, speaking of, your time in Europe, I was thinking about this other day. Like, it's very easy to get caught up when you're here in Europe, especially as an American, if you don't speak the language. Uh, and you come back to your room after skiing and it's noon, and all you have to do for the rest of the day is, some dry land and maybe some video, and you could just sit on your phone all day. And a lot of people do that. But I was wondering what the Euro tour was like before you had, phones to just sit on and, movies to watch and stuff like that.
People read a lot. I mean, so like my
Yeah.
first couple years on the ski team, Jimmy Cochran was my roommate, and he was still in school, and so he had like a stack of physics textbooks with him all the time. So he was like studying that, and I would just like pester him with questions. So like
You
he
just
would,
learned physics like
yeah, I mean, I
indirectly.
didn't learn it in like the same way he was learning it, obviously, but I was just curious and wanted to be taught, and we had like good little debates on stuff. So I think like things were definitely more social, like Dane and Chip and myself, like people were not just huddled in their room doing whatever they're doing. Also, like, I mean, that was like part of why after 2006, I started Shred is like, I have like, there's some time in the middle of the season I can like work on this and
Yeah.
had other things going on. So, yeah, I mean, like phones like they are today, I mean, it wasn't until like 2000. 12, like the meat of my career, that like Instagram or something like that became a thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty late in like the life cycle of my career did that stuff like come about in that way. So yeah, of course, like we watch shows and stuff on our computer. I mean, we'd pass around the hard drive of pirated shows and TV, so you kind of had like the library of 10-year-old stuff. But yeah, I mean, definitely not the same as people nowadays going back to the room and doom scrolling.
Yeah, the doom scroll, it'll get you. You know, and speaking of like activities other than the phone, I heard this story that, every year in New Zealand, you would buy a car, and then at the end of the New Zealand camp, like a trashy car, at the end of the New Zealand camp, you'd jump it off a dirt jump or something.
Yeah, so it actually started with like the rental cars. I mean, you had New Zealand. Like New Zealand is one of my favorite places ever. We'd just go like explore after training or after dry land, and like we followed this Jeep tour up the river in Arrowtown one year, and we were like fjording rivers in like a Subaru Legacy, and Jimmy and Timmy Kelly were like sitting on the roof and like guiding me through rocks on the way up, and um, we went a couple river fjords into it, and our feet were like 6 inches deep in the water driving the car and stuff like that, and then I think Jimmy drove the car back down. We like when we looked at the top of the river, we were like, ooh, we were like a millimeter from the air intake. We like barely survived this thing. And then a couple days later, we were rallying it, and we actually like rallied it and like kind of got off the side of the road, and the exhaust pipe caught some grass on fire. So we had to like put that out. So we were like doing dumb stuff with the rental car before this. And then we're like, it'd be really fun if we just like I had a bunch of friends that went to school down there, like in Dunedin, as like their study abroad, and they all bought just like really janky, like $500 cars. So it's like, so I know there's $500 cars down here.
Yep.
So next year, like our PT was from New Zealand. We're like, hey, can you find us a car to buy for when we land? So we got down there, and he had like found us this, 1980 something Holden, and he like spray painted the hood with an American flag, and so that was our car that we just ripped around. We first like were trying to like rally race in all these like gravel pits, but we soon found that we were getting too many flat tires. We were just like ripping the tires off the bead, and so we're like
Oh,
pushing it back to the gas station and picking rocks out of the tire, and like it was kind of a painful experience. And then we found this like little like dirt bike jump, and so we're like, oh, let's like build out another tire for it. And we first jumped at like 6 inches. We're like, oh my God, we got the car like 6 inches off the ground. And then sure enough, like an hour later, we were like launching it 6 feet in the air, um, just completely destroying this thing. So we got a few good days out of that. Jimmy being very handy was keep able to get it started and like fixing the radiator or the coolant or whatever it was, like
oh, because
things he
he
had.
like growing up at Cochrane's, he was always fixing that rope tow, which is basically
Yeah,
just
he
a
was a fix-it
truck
guy. So, I
engine.
mean, he
Yeah.
kept this thing running well longer than anybody else would have been able to. And so we ran this thing into the ground. So pretty, pretty fun. So we started doing that for a couple of years in a row. And um, yeah, for a couple $100, split a few different ways. It was a pretty cheap and fun adventure.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. And you had the time, like you had the time to get flat tires, like, and this was, after training one day or something like that, and you
Like when
push
we
it
like really
back
go
and
explore, we go more often on our days off.
okay.
But we go like rally around like close by. Like, I mean, it's like funny, like underneath the airport in Queenstown used to be just like this like industrial. There like there's a gravel pit. There's like some dirt bike trails. There was just like it was not a developed thing. It was like on the side of the river, and people were just doing whatever redneck stuff people did down there. It's definitely developed now. It's like not a possibility to do anymore. But like,
Yeah.
so we just drive like 10 minutes there. Where like everybody was just kind of like have like people are on their dirt bikes, and people were all doing kind of dumb stuff as it was, and so um, we joined in the fun, and it was, yeah, 10 minutes from the condo, so um, a good way to have fun for a little bit, and then hopefully we could get the car to drive back to the condo and not leak too much fluid or whatnot, and then take it back, a couple days later.
That is awesome. That is so cool. It's great. Well, speaking of New Zealand, uh, so you just signed, you had how many years did you have with Head, first of all, before you're
I
now
was
done
with
with
Head for
Head, but
14 years.
14 years, a lot of
Yeah.
wins, a lot of success. And
Yeah.
now officially, right, you're with
Yeah. So I just joined DPS. So DPS makes skis here in Salt Lake. They have the factory just basically in downtown Salt Lake, and they traditionally just made powder skis. But they've been looking into making more front side, more kind of carving centric line, and so I just started with them, helping them develop that side of the line, which like I've always been a tinker with skis. I always loved ski development. So the opportunity to like go into the office, go into the factory there, and we can literally come up with an idea. Let's say today's Tuesday. This afternoon, we have a concept, an idea. We can plug it in the computer, kind of test out our thesis, and then mill a core. And tomorrow we can put the skis, start building the skis, and then be skiing on them tomorrow afternoon. Um,
that's cool.
so like the idea of being able to iterate on skis in that regard, helping develop the line, kind of testing out all these like theories I'd had for years and years about ski development that just didn't have the ability to follow through on. Like we can do that now, and so um, it's really cool to be able to work with them. I mean, they've been on the forefront of making carbon fiber skis forever. So they're, using aerospace grade carbon fiber and doing stuff that hasn't really been done in the ski industry. But their main focus had been more on powder skis. I mean, they don't really have a ski that's under 100 foot underfoot. So, making that next style of skis that kind of is more carving. We're going to do a 79, an 89, and a 94 underfoot ski. So kind of more on the free ski oriented side of carving. But we went down to New Zealand and tested a bunch of constructions, and also filming a bunch for the launch. And so been really fun. We're down there with a couple of engineers, and then the marketing guy, and then really getting some ideas on how to start developing these skis. And it's been really fun. I mean, to be able to be
That's cool.
in the nitty gritty is what I've always wanted to do. So it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. How is it finding that balance between you're one of the greatest skiers of all time, and then people buying these skis are very far from that? How do you find that balance of like you being the one testing them and making a ski that is usable to people? You know what I mean?
So that's a real entirely that's an important piece of it for sure. Like if we made a ski optimized around me, yeah, it wouldn't be optimized around everybody. Um, but like that's actually one of the good things about working with carbon fiber is it has the properties to kind of change in its flex pattern based on like how hard it's being skied. And so that's kind of like one of
Okay.
the ways we're developing the ski, but also like, yes, we have to make it so it can ski and hold at my level, but it needs to be able to ski at the normal person. So like we had people testing it from varying skill levels. I mean, Jeannie, who's our physio forever.
Yeah.
She's 62, just had a knee replacement, and like we're hanging out with her. And I was like, hey, come up and test some skis for us. And like she liked the same model that I liked. We had 8 different constructions out there, and all of us zeroed in on the same ones, and we all liked them for varying but kind of similar reasons. And they're super forgiving. Like she was on a ski that was longer than that she would normally like, but she was like had a huge smile on her face, like she was trying to steal them at the end of the day. So that's really encouraging when you can take a wide breadth of skiers, and sizes and like body types and skiing styles, and if people will mesh towards the same construction, because like we had a very wide funnel of skis. I mean, we were trying to like have a big buckshot of of ideas, and then start to narrow it down on a couple ideas to start iterating from there. And so um, it was good to see that we all kind of zeroed in on the same zone.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you talked to Bodie? Have you gotten any advice from him? Because he's doing a similar thing.
I mean, his skis are made by Alon, and so you have your menu of ingredients, and you can make one mold basically. I mean, we could make I can make 20 molds in a day, like if we want to.
Just
Like we
because they're
can
carbon
really,
fiber,
it's like because we can iterate like really
as
quickly iterate.
opposed to wood, is what you're saying.
I mean, if you're having a lot like any of these big manufacturers make your skis and you're in a different company, like a mold is $50,000. Like you're not going to be um
Wow.
or maybe not that much, but a mold is expensive. You're not like iterating that much. Whereas when you're making them yourself, and the guys at DPS have like been really on the forefront of like how to make, cost effective test molds. We were basically just making them in like inside of another core, basically, like really kind of innovative way to like do short runs, test stuff. Like, so I don't think they're not, it's very analogous because we're
Okay,
making
okay.
these here in the US. I mean, he's trying to do some other stuff, but basically, like, yeah, if you're going to a lawn, you have your menu of options, and you can't really do anything that crazy and out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're nearing the end here, and I've got a couple, maybe two more topics I wanted to get to. The
Yeah.
first is competitiveness. You've said to me before, you've said to a lot of guys in the US team, like, don't trust the process, be impatient with the process, make it happen now, vertical improvement. When I played basketball with you in Park City, it was like it was an intense experience. And I know like you're a competitive guy, like not just from the basketball, but like watching you ski race, like it's very obvious, like race day, you brought that extra bit. Um, so I don't know if you like I don't have a question specifically, but I don't know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit, like the type of competitiveness it takes to win at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of given, not, maybe I shouldn't call it out, but I've like given River shit over the years. I'm like don't be a nice guy. Don't be like trusting the process and thinking like things are gonna evolve slowly. Like they don't evolve slowly. Like just go out there and eat it. Like if you think Marco Odermatt is like a nice guy, he will fucking eat your lunch. Like he wants, like, on a race day, he doesn't like feel sorry for you, or like Marcel doesn't feel sorry for you. They're gonna fucking kick your ass.
Hmm.
And like we can be buddies in the finish area, but like you gotta fucking be a killer. And like that's, I think, what I see missing from so many of the younger guys in the team is they're like, it's all kind of like a fun little thing, and like it is fun, but like go fucking do it. Like it's at, like I said, like the 30th, or somebody who's got 30 GS points, and if they figure out how to time a turn well and they actually like were hungry, they'd get top tens in World Cups. Like it's really fucking hard, but it's not that hard. Like
Hmm.
like the level is like not, it's not unachievable. Like I went from being, I had literally had 30 points and then was starting scoring World Cups the next year. Like that is like how the trajectory can go. I mean, none of the best guys in the world were like tinkering around like in this middling process. They like, you figure it out and you go do it. You don't like think about like, oh, I should like do this race. You like go do it. Just like go do it.
Yeah.
Like it's just skiing. I think um this, I've been like a few years on the World Cup. It was the first time I was actually, and I'd won some races, but I'd never been leading after first run before in a World Cup. And I remember like in the spin bike, and I was like with Axel, who'd been in that position more at that point. And I was like, hey, what do you like? What do you do when you're like, what do you think about when you're like leading after furniture? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you just ski. Like, why would you do anything differently? Um,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, no shit. Like, you just go ski. Um, and so I think like people like think there's a process and they try to like complicate things. And like, if you're skiing well, go ski well. Like, don't like think you need to like get 20th place because that'll help like you move up. Like getting 20th place is useless. Like it
Yeah.
does nothing.
Very
Like
true.
for guys who get in a second run, like if you do okay and you get 20th place, you're still going to start 60. Like it's not going to do anything for you. Yeah, it's cool. It's a good pat on the back, but like if you go throw down, you can get top five. Like it's not that hard to like jump in from like barely making a second run to the top five if you just throw down. Because most of the people in the race have this idea that they're going to get 15th to 25th place to get some points. Whereas if you have the mindset like, hey, I'm going to go kick some ass this run and take some risk, then you can be in the top 10, top five easy. And maybe if you like nail it on conditions and all this, you can go be on the podium. I mean, that's like, that is the opportunity when you're in the second run. And
Yeah.
so often it's just like, oh, Like Ben, like it doesn't matter if you're 25th place. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like go do it. Like you're finally on a clean course. Go show what's up and get top three.
Yeah.
You can. Like don't like literally like getting 15th place. You have to get 15th place 8 races in a row to get into the top 30. Like
Yeah.
it
Because
doesn't
it's
help you to do
exponential. The
it once
points
or
are
twice. It
exponential.
doesn't like it's you have to fight the cumulative of all the guys ahead of you's points from last year. So like one race of 10th place isn't going to help you. You have to like go throw down at a big level in a few races. You don't need to like get 20th places 10 races in a row. Like maybe then at the last race of the year you're top 30.
Do you stay in touch with the US guys? Because I feel like I need you on the road with me, just giving me this pep talk every once in a
Uh,
while.
yeah. I mean, I talk to those guys every once in a while, but
Yeah.
not like in any kind of closer contact.
Because I mean, talking about like a vibe guy on the road, we and not to compare you to this other guy, but I've heard stories about Baby Huey, like having this guy just on the road with you who served no other purpose than just to kind of help out and yell at you out of the start, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Huey was is like one of Darren's best friends. So he basically is like travel on the road with Darren Rolfs to just be helpful, but also he just was like into it. Like he was, as you said, a vibe guy. But he obviously had a very good voice for the start. He had just kind of a good voice as it was, anyways, and he's a great guy to have around. But yeah, I mean, he was fun to have in the start gate because he kept things light. But then also, yeah, when you went out of the start gate, he had a good like idea. Some guys didn't like the big bombastic cheering you out of the start, but for the guys that did, he brought it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And when I watched World Cup when I was a kid, you'd hear his voice like
Yeah,
over the TV. You'd hear it. It was awesome.
yeah,
Well, Ted, we're basically at the end, but I wanted to ask how the family's doing because you have three boys now, right?
yeah. I have a 7-year-old and 4-year-old twins, all boys, and um, it's fun. I mean, they're a lot. Boys, they wrestle, they fight, they do all that kind of stuff. But we're having a good time. I mean, they're out biking. Snow's coming pretty soon, so they'll be out skiing. So it's fun. I mean, um, it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah,
for real.
sure.
But um, they're fun too. It's a never-ending adventure.
That's awesome. And are they ski racing? Are they going to ski race?
I mean, my goal, this is like I have a really like selfish goal for them ski racing is I want them to ski race at least until they're like 12. Not for any other reason than like we could be like I could be like, "Hey, drop what you're doing. We're going to Japan to go powder ski." And they could keep up.
And they can hang. Yeah.
Or like, "Hey, we're going like, hey, we got this opportunity to go to Alaska, go heli skiing," and you can keep up. Where I feel like every 12-year-old ski racer in the world has is that level. So that's really like my only aspiration. If they like live to that, if they go to that level, then or not, I guess will be up to them. But that's my selfish ask as a dad. And so Jax is like in the ski program. He like Parksy ski team has like a little Groms and skills and drills program that he does. He'll do on Tuesday nights, and he's on like the Parksy like little learn to race. So it's like, and they ski gates once or
Yeah.
twice a year, but more just like free skiing around, which is perfect.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I had one more question actually.
Yep.
What would you say? You're on the other side of the sport. What would you say to people who are ski racing now? Anything.
Um, have fun with that. I think we like talked a lot about like those pieces, like free skiing. I think like also like you have to be your own advocate and like you got to fight for yourself and also like educate yourself. Like it sound like these kind of things like sound really conspiratorial now, like to say like educate yourself, but like the peop like the coaches and stuff have like your best interests and like they're looking out for you, but they also are looking out for 20 other people. Nobody's looking out for yourself like you are. And trying to like analyze the sport in a different way, like taking like being willing to like explore and take risks, not just like on the course, but like as an approach. Um, like for my like physical training, like Pear, who's back with the ski team, like I thought always thought he made the best programs. And then when he left, like I started writing my own programs for basically my entirety of my career. And like when the 35-meter skis came out, like having trained on them a lot, I was like, this is taxing me in a different way. And like so I train a different way. And like all the sports science people are like, well, that doesn't like make sense. It doesn't fit in this little like box. Like you need a lot of A1 and then you do some
Hmm.
strength and some power. And it's like, no, like I'm not doing any A1. I'm gonna go do 50 squats at 250 pounds or 280 pounds as many times as I fucking could because that's what I feel like at the bottom of a race course.
Yeah.
And like, and so like started doing like more muscle endurance stuff, which was like doesn't fit into sports science. Like stuff that, so just trying to like think of ways like if you can equate what the bottom of a race course feels into your training, then you're going to be better off for the training. And not to say like that sports science is wrong and stuff, but just ski racing doesn't fit neatly into any sports science box. And so something like that, just like you have to like think about new ways and because nobody else is going to do it for you. And um, you are your own best advocate. You know your body the best. Um, yeah, so not everybody has the answers for you. You got to go find them yourself. And that goes with equipment too. Like I said, like when we were talking about the 35-meter skis, it was like Alex and I tinkering around and like coming out with like an idea of bending the ski tips. Um, and this is just like stealing ideas from other places. And I think like same thing with your technique is you can like watch Odermatt and you don't copy, but you're like, okay, these are the couple things that he does well. How can
Hmm.
I incorporate this into what I'm doing? So I think that's like the biggest thing like a young racer can do is like explore what their strengths are and like how they can, take what they're doing to the next level, but also like figure out ways to like do something new and different and like use a body of research and then build upon it.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say you're content with your ski career? You made peace with it?
Uh, I mean, it's far, my ski career was far above and beyond like what my expectations were. I was like a 17-year-old kid. Like I was not even making like US nationals and like was getting my butt kicked. I was like, the 10th best 84 in the country. So to like go on 2 years later, like scoring World Cup points, um,
Hmm.
and then like winning as like I did, was definitely far beyond the expectations of my, teenage self. Of course, like when you're in it, like you wanted more. And like, yeah, the last 5 years of my career when like my back started sucking, like I felt like I was way below my expectations and what I could have done. And so like, sure, I could have like woulda, coulda, shoulda, but at the same time, um, it's pretty incredible what I was able to do. And it was a really fun journey.
Yeah. Well, you always be one of the goats, and people will always watch YouTube videos of you skiing GS. So,
Thank you.
thanks for being on the podcast, Ted. I really appreciate
Yeah, it was fun, Jimmy. Kick some ass this year. Good luck. Fuck the process. Go do it just go do it. Just go ski.
it.